The first time I died in the game, I laughed. The second time, I realized I couldn't log out. By the third, my roommate was standing beside me, sword in hand, his dark eyes fixed on mine with a softness I never thought he was capable of. That was when it hit me. This wasn't just a glitch. This was going to change everything. I never asked to be here. One stupid impulse, one late-night bet gone too far, and suddenly I'm stuck inside a VR game that's supposed to be cutting-edge, hyper-realistic, socially adaptive. Yeah, well, congratulations to the developers, it worked a little too well. I could feel the cold bite of the wind on my skin, smell the wet earth after rain, even sense my pulse quickening whenever danger approached. But what scared me most wasn't the monsters or the endless cycle of quests. It was Ethan. Ethan Collins, my college roommate, the guy I thought I knew, the guy who always kept his earbuds in, rolled his eyes at my bad jokes, and kept our dorm room smelling faintly of pine soap and coffee. Somehow he had been pulled into this mess too. And in here, stripped of the distractions of campus life, stripped of sarcasm and distance, I was seeing a side of him I didn't know existed. He was brave. He was kind. And worst of all, he was looking at me like I mattered. At first, I told myself it was just the game. AI-driven empathy modules, interactive emotional feedback loops, all that tech jargon the developers bragged about in their flashy promo videos. That had to be it. There was no way Ethan actually cared. Not like that. Not for me. But then he touched my hand. Just once. Just for a second. And everything shifted. The first week in the game was hell. We were thrown into a medieval-style fantasy world, complete with endless forests, villages with suspiciously beautiful NPCs, and quests that ranged from kill 5 wolves to deliver bread to the baker's daughter. Simple at first, almost laughable, but the longer we stayed, the harder it got. Wolves turned into bandits. Bandits turned into warlords. And every night, no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't find a way out. Log out, I'd say, pressing the invisible menu button in the air. Nothing. System override. Emergency exit. Nothing. Ethan never complained. He just clenched his jaw, adjusted the blades strapped across his back, and said, "We'll figure it out. We always do. Always. Like we were some kind of team. Like I wasn't the guy who once accidentally spilled Coke all over his laptop." And maybe it was the danger, maybe it was the way adrenaline made everything sharper, but I couldn't stop noticing him. The way his shirt clung to his shoulders when he swung his sword. The way his laughter, rare but real, broke through the bleakness of our situation. The way his eyes softened when I panicked, grounding me when the fear was too much. It was torture. Sweet, unbearable torture. The turning point came on the night we nearly froze to death. We'd been climbing the Frostspire Mountains, hunting for a crystal that was supposed to awaken the way home. The higher we went, the thinner the air became, the colder the wind bit through our clothes. By the time the sun dipped below the jagged peaks, I could barely feel my fingers. "We should have stayed in the village," I muttered through chattering teeth. "I told you this was a bad idea. You also told me you could handle spicy ramen without crying." Ethan shot back, his voice tight with exhaustion. "Hey, that's different." But my joke died in my throat, because suddenly he stopped, turned, and pulled me against him. For warmth, I told myself, pure survival instinct. His chest pressed against mine, strong and steady, his breath hot against my frozen skin. My heart hammered so hard I was sure he could feel it. "Stay still," he murmured. "Just stay." And for the first time since we'd been trapped, I didn't want to leave. Not the game. Not him. But reality has a cruel sense of timing. The next morning, as the sun broke across the horizon, the system glitched. A voice echoed around us, mechanical and cold. Player heart sync detected. Game route altered. I froze. What the hell does that mean? Ethan looked at me, his eyes searching mine, and for once, he didn't have an answer. But I could guess. The game wasn't just tracking our progress. It was tracking us, our bond, our feelings. And now, because of one stupid moment in the freezing cold, everything had changed. Everything. I didn't sleep that night, not after what the system's voice had said. Player heart sync detected. Game route altered. It sounded clinical, almost harmless, like something you'd brush off as a harmless bug. But I knew better. This game wasn't harmless. It was watching us, molding itself around our decisions, our fears, our mistakes. And now it had found something to exploit. The space between Ethan and me. The crystal we'd been searching for pulsed faintly in my hands, like it had a heartbeat of its own. I stared at it for hours, my back against the cold stone of the cave we'd taken shelter in, listening to Ethan breathe beside me. He slept sitting up, sword across his lap, head tilted against the wall. Even here, even half-frozen and bone-tired, he was alert, always protecting, always guarding. And I hated that I noticed how peaceful he looked in sleep. I hated that I wanted to reach out, to brush the dark strands of hair away from his forehead. I hated that maybe, just maybe, the game was right. The following day, the path down the Frostspire Mountains was worse than the climb up. The snow had hardened overnight into slick sheets of ice, and every step felt like the game was daring us to fall to our deaths. My legs shook from exhaustion, but I refused to complain. Ethan didn't need more weight on his shoulders. Still, he noticed. He always noticed. "You're limping," he said quietly, not turning his head. "I'm fine. You're not." He stopped so suddenly that I nearly bumped into him. With one swift move, he crouched, his back to me. "Get on." I blinked. "What? No. Absolutely not. Your ankle's swollen. You won't last an hour like that." I said I'm fine. "Stop being stubborn for once in your life," he muttered. His voice wasn't sharp, it was low, steady, carrying the kind of authority that made me falter. "I'm not asking." Heat rushed to my face, though the wind was biting cold. Slowly, reluctantly, I climbed onto his back. His hands hooked beneath my knees, firm and secure, and for a terrifying moment, my entire world narrowed to the feeling of his strength beneath me. "Comfortable?" he asked after a while. "Shut up," he chuckled, actually chuckled, and I hated how much I loved the sound. By the time we reached the base of the mountain, the crystal in my pocket had grown warmer, its glow brighter. We entered a dense forest, its trees towering so high they seemed to scrape the clouds. Sunlight struggled to reach the forest floor, but the crystal illuminated the way like a beacon. That's when the voices started. Whispers at first, faint, curling around my ears like smoke, then louder, clearer. Words I didn't want to hear. "You're not meant to be here. You're just a burden. He'll never choose you." I froze mid-step, my breath catching. "Did you hear that?" Ethan's head snapped toward me. "Hear what?" The voices grew louder, a cacophony pressing against my skull. My knees buckled, and before I could fall, Ethan's arms were around me. His grip was solid, grounding, pulling me back from the edge. "Hey, look at me," he said, his face inches from mine. "Focus on me. Just me." And I did. God help me, I did. His voice cut through the chaos, steady and sure, until the whispers faded into silence. When it was over, I was trembling. It was the crystal. It's messing with my head. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we destroy it." No, the word left my mouth before I could stop it. "If this is part of the way out, we can't risk it." He didn't argue, but his eyes told me everything. He hated it. He hated that I was holding on to something dangerous, something that hurt me. He hated that he couldn't fix this for me. And I hated that it made me want to kiss him. The second week bled into the third. Quests grew harder, enemies faster. Villages we once relied on for shelter turned hostile. NPCs speaking in riddles or refusing to acknowledge us at all. It was as if the world itself was rejecting us, closing in, daring us to break. But somewhere in that chaos, Ethan and I grew closer. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't some sudden confession or dramatic moment of clarity. It was smaller than that. The way he always handed me the last piece of bread without comment. The way he taught me how to hold a dagger so my hands wouldn't shake. The way he walked slightly behind me, as if shielding me from threats I couldn't see. Every little act chipped away at the wall I'd built around myself. Every look, every laugh, every silence filled with unspoken words, until I couldn't tell where the game ended and my feelings began. And maybe that was the point. Maybe that's what the game wanted. It all came to a head one night under the blood-red glow of the moon. We were camped by the ruins of an ancient temple, fire crackling low between us. I couldn't stop staring at him, the firelight painting his features in sharp lines and soft shadows. "Why do you keep doing this?" I blurted. He frowned. "Doing what?" "Protecting me, carrying me, acting like." I swallowed hard. "Like I matter." The silence that followed was unbearable. Then he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on mine. "Because you do." The words hit me harder than any monster's strike. My chest ached, my throat burned, and I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. And before I knew it, I was leaning forward too. Closer. Closer. Until the only thing between us was a single breath. That was when the system interrupted. A blinding flash of light, a deafening chime. Player bond level, critical. Pathway locked. New objective. Survive together. I jerked back, my heart slamming against my ribs. Ethan's expression was unreadable, caught between shock and something deeper, something raw. The fire crackled. The forest held its breath. And I knew, without a doubt, that nothing would ever be the same again. It wasn't just words. It was a verdict. The game wasn't merely tracking our progress anymore. It was branding us, reshaping its very rules to test whatever it thought was happening between us. And the worst part? It was right. Ethan hadn't said anything after the system announcement. He just threw dirt on the fire, shouldered his sword, and muttered, "We should move." His tone was even calm, too calm, the kind of calm that only came when he was hiding something. I followed him in silence, my chest tight, my thoughts a mess. Every time I glanced at him, his jaw was set like stone, his eyes scanning the shadows around us. He was focused, determined, but when his gaze flicked toward me, just once, just for a second, it wasn't determination I saw. It was fear. Not fear of the game, not fear of dying, but fear of me, of us, of what the game had just exposed. The forest grew darker as we pressed on. Branches arched overhead, clawing at the sky, cutting off the light of the blood moon. The air smelled damp and heavy, every step crunching against leaves that seemed too loud in the silence. That's when we heard it, the faint shuffle of footsteps that weren't ours. Ethan reacted instantly, pulling me behind him. His sword flashed as he scanned the darkness. "Who's there?" he barked. The figures emerged slowly, one by one, stepping into the clearing. At first I thought they were players like us, other unlucky souls trapped in this nightmare. But then I saw their eyes. Empty, hollow, too perfect, too symmetrical. NPCs. Only this time they weren't offering quests or selling bread. They were staring at us like predators. "You do not belong here," one of them said, its voice flat, mechanical. "You are unclean," another added, its face eerily calm. My stomach dropped. "What the hell? They're not real," Ethan muttered, tightening his grip on his sword. "Don't listen to them." But the NPCs kept advancing. "Your bond is forbidden. You corrupt the path. You will be erased." The words hit me like knives. It wasn't enough that we were fighting monsters, climbing mountains, bleeding just to survive. Now even the world itself wanted to erase us. Ethan raised his sword. "Stay behind me." But before I could respond, the first NPC lunged. The fight was chaos. Ethan moved like a storm, blade flashing, cutting through the villagers with brutal precision. But for every one that fell, another stepped forward, their faces blank, their voices chanting. "Unclean, unclean, unclean." I tried to help, fumbling with the dagger Ethan had given me weeks ago. My hands shook, but I slashed blindly at anything that came too close. Still, I wasn't fast enough. One of them grabbed my arm, its grip cold and unyielding, pulling me into the crowd. "Ethan!" I screamed. He was there in an instant, rage blazing in his eyes as he drove his sword straight through the NPC's chest. The body dissolved into smoke, but Ethan didn't stop. He yanked me into his arms, his voice low and furious. "Don't you dare leave my side." And just like that, the world went silent. The NPCs froze, their heads tilting in unison. Then, as if responding to some invisible command, they stepped back into the shadows, vanishing one by one until the clearing was empty. My legs gave out. I collapsed against Ethan, gasping for breath, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would tear through my ribs. What the hell was that?" I whispered. He held me tighter, his chest heaving. "The game's changing the rules." "No," I said, shaking my head. "It's not the game. It's us." The words slipped out before I could stop them. And in the silence that followed, Ethan's grip on me faltered. Just slightly, just enough for me to feel the crack in his armor. We didn't talk about it. Not that night, not the next morning. But something had shifted. Every glance lingered too long. Every silence stretched too wide. When he brushed against me, even by accident, sparks shot through my skin. It was unbearable. We were halfway through a ruined village when it finally broke. The place was deserted, houses crumbling, windows shattered. The silence was suffocating. Ethan kicked open the door of an old inn, scanning the room before motioning me inside. "We'll rest here," he said. I sat on the edge of a broken bed, my hands twisting in my lap. I couldn't take it anymore. The unspoken weight pressing down on us, heavier than any sword. "Ethan," I said. He froze in the middle of checking the windows. "Yeah. Why are you doing this?" My voice cracked. "Why are you protecting me like this? Risking yourself, carrying me, fighting for me. Because I have to." He cut in, sharper than I expected. "No, you don't." I shot back, my chest aching. "You could have left me behind 100 times by now. You could have let me die and maybe the game would have let you go. But you didn't. You won't. Why?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan stood there, his back to me, shoulders rigid. Finally, he turned. His eyes met mine, and for the first time since I'd known him, all his walls were gone. "Because it's you," he said quietly. My breath caught. "It's always been you," he continued, his voice raw, unsteady. "Even before this damn game. Even when you drive me crazy, even when you don't see it, I can't stop. I can't not care about you. I stared at him, my throat closing, my eyes burning. The words I'd been too afraid to say, too afraid to even admit, rose up like a tide. But before I could finish, the system cut in again. The room trembled, the walls cracked, and Ethan's confession hung in the air, unfinished, as the world around us shattered. The ground split open beneath us. One moment we were inside the ruined inn, Ethan's confession hanging heavy in the air, and the next the world shattered like glass. Pieces of the floor floated upward, walls cracked apart, the ceiling dissolved into a sky full of fractured light. The system's voice boomed, cold and unyielding. My stomach dropped, erased, not defeated, not reset, erased. Stay close, Ethan barked, grabbing my wrist. His hand was warm, grounding, even as the world collapsed around us. What does it mean? I stammered, clutching the glowing crystal tighter against my chest. He pulled me onto the only stable piece of ground left, a floating stone platform surrounded by endless void. His sword gleamed in the fractured light as he scanned the horizon. It means the game wants to know how far we'll go for each other. My pulse thundered. And if we fail? His eyes flicked to me, steady, unflinching. Then it takes one of us. The first trial came quickly. Figures rose from the void, silhouettes of people I recognized. My parents, my old high school friends, professors from campus. Their faces flickered between familiar and monstrous, their voices twisting with venom. Why waste your time on him? He's holding you back. He'll never love you the way you want. Their words clawed into me, sharper than any blade. My knees buckled, shame and fear tearing through my chest. But then Ethan's hand was on my shoulder, firm and sure. Don't listen. I looked up. His face was inches from mine, his eyes fierce. They're not real. None of it's real. I'm real. Us this. He pressed his palm against mine, anchoring me. That's real. The illusions shrieked, dissolving into smoke. The platform steadied beneath our feet. The system's voice rang out again. 64%. Like our lives were just numbers on a scoreboard. The second trial was worse. We were dropped into a battlefield, fire and ash raining from the sky. Armored warriors surged from every direction, blades flashing, arrows cutting through the air. Ethan fought like a man possessed, each swing of his sword fueled by desperation. I tried to help, but my dagger felt useless against the tide. An arrow whistled through the air, straight at me. Ethan saw it. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He threw himself in front of me, the arrow burying deep into his shoulder. Ethan, I screamed, catching him as he staggered. Blood soaked through his shirt, hot against my hands. His jaw clenched, his face pale, but he still lifted his sword. I'm fine. Stay behind me. No, you're not fine. You can't keep. He turned his head, meeting my eyes, and in that moment, I understood. He wasn't just fighting the enemies. He was fighting the system, fighting for me, for us. I tightened my grip on the dagger, and for the first time I fought like I meant it. Every strike was for him. Every scream of defiance tore from my throat, cutting through the smoke and fire. When the last warrior fell, the battlefield dissolved into light. Ethan collapsed to his knees, breathing hard, sweat and blood dripping down his face. The system spoke. We barely had time to breathe before the final trial began. The void twisted, reshaping itself into something terrifyingly simple. A bridge, narrow, endless. Beneath it, nothing but darkness. At the far end, a glowing gate pulsed with light. But there were two bridges, two gates, One glowing gold, steady and safe. The other crimson, flickering like fire. The system's voice was merciless. My chest froze. No, no, that's... Ethan's face hardened, his jaw set. He turned to me, voice low but steady. You're going. What? No, absolutely not. Don't argue with me, Alex. I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself. My throat burned, my eyes stinging. You think I could live with that? You think I could walk through that gate knowing you? He stepped forward, cupping the side of my face with his uninjured hand. His touch was gentle, trembling, and it shattered me. I'd rather die than lose you, he whispered. The bridge rumbled beneath us, cracks spreading across the stone. Time was running out. Tears blurred my vision. My voice shook. Ethan, please, don't make me choose like this. He leaned his forehead against mine, his breath ragged. You don't have to choose. I already did. And then, before I could stop him, he shoved me toward the golden bridge. I stumbled forward, screaming his name, but the system roared above us. The world froze. The bridges dissolved. The void shattered into light. And Ethan was ripped away from me, vanishing into the brightness before I could reach him. No, Ethan. My voice broke, raw and desperate, but he was gone. All that remained was silence. And the faint echo of his last words. I already chose silence. That was all that was left after Ethan disappeared. The world around me was nothing but white light, endless and hollow. My hands shook as I reached into the void, calling his name until my throat was raw. But there was no answer. The crystal I'd carried since the mountains cracked in my palms, glowing faintly before dissolving into dust. For the first time since being trapped in this nightmare, I felt truly alone. Please, I whispered to no one, don't take him from me. Take me instead. Take anything, but not him. The system's voice answered, cold as ever. Reward. The word felt cruel, meaningless. Nothing could replace him. Nothing could undo what had just happened. I fell to my knees, sobbing into the void. When I woke again, I wasn't in the white light. I was back in our dorm room. The faint hum of the mini-fridge, the posters peeling from the wall, the smell of coffee and detergent. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream, just a terrible, vivid nightmare. But then I saw the VR headset on the desk, glowing faintly with the same fractured light that had consumed Ethan. And my heart sank. Ethan, my voice cracked. Please, tell me you're here. Silence. I stumbled toward his bed, pulling back the sheets like maybe, just maybe, he'd be there, smirking, telling me I snored too loud. But it was empty. He wasn't here. Days blurred. I went to class, ate in silence, pretended to sleep. People laughed, shouted, lived their lives all around me, but I was a ghost drifting through it all. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, his hand reaching for me, his voice saying, I already chose. And every morning, I woke to emptiness. Until the morning I didn't. I remember it vividly. The sunlight cut through the blinds, warm on my face. I rolled over, expecting silence. But instead, I heard it, the soft sound of steady breathing. I froze. My chest tightened. Slowly, I turned my head. And there he was. Ethan. Lying in his bed, messy hair falling across his forehead, lips parted in sleep. His chest rose and fell, steady, alive. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Tears stung my eyes as I stared, terrified that if I blinked, he'd vanish again. But then he stirred, groaning softly, his eyes fluttering open. And he smiled. "Morning," he rasped, voice rough with sleep. I broke. I launched across the space between our beds, nearly tackling him as I wrapped my arms around him. He gasped, then laughed, muffled against my shoulder. "Easy, Alex. You'll crush me. You—" My voice cracked, shaking with sobs. "You were gone. I thought I lost you." His arms tightened around me, strong and sure. "You didn't. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." I pulled back just enough to look at him, my hands cupping his face. "The game, what happened? How are you?" He shook his head. "I don't know. One minute I was falling, the next I woke up here. Maybe the game wasn't trying to erase us. Maybe it just wanted to see if we'd fight for each other." I swallowed hard, brushing tears from my cheeks. "We shouldn't have had to prove it." "No," he agreed softly. His thumb brushed along my jaw, tender. "But we did." The silence between us wasn't heavy this time. It was full, alive. And then, finally, I kissed him. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. Our teeth clashed. My hands trembled. His breath hitched. But it was real. More real than anything in the game. He kissed me back like he'd been waiting forever. His hands slid into my hair, holding me close, grounding me in a way nothing else could. When we broke apart, breathless, he pressed his forehead against mine. "You're not dreaming," he whispered, as if he knew the fear clawing at my chest. "I'm here, and I'm not letting go." I laughed through the tears, clinging to him. "Good, because you're stuck with me now." "Guess I am," he said, smiling, his eyes shining. "And you know what? I don't mind." Life after that wasn't easy. People stared when we walked across campus together. Rumors spread, whispers followed us. Some of them weren't kind. Some of them cut deep. But none of it mattered. Because when Ethan's hand slipped into mine, when his smile softened just for me, when we collapsed into our dorm room at the end of the day, laughing until our sides hurt, I knew we'd already survived worse. We'd survived monsters, trials, a world that wanted to erase us. And we'd won. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if the game was ever just a game. Maybe it was more. Maybe it was some twisted reflection of the world we live in, where love like ours is tested, judged, pushed to the edge. But then I roll over, see Ethan asleep beside me, his arm draped across my chest, his breathing steady. And I realize it doesn't matter. Because whatever it was, it brought us here. To this. To him. And that's more than enough. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.